Okay, this is our fourth meeting. Last time, I'm just going to review a little bit of what we talked about. We discussed temporary leave days and decided to create a subcommittee to further explore that topic. We also discussed the late resignation policy and looked at historical data. Today, we're going to begin with the SMSD 4, which is around teacher retirement and maybe a matching program. If we finish that, we'll look at NEA-SM 3 and SMSD 3, which are around PLC and plan time. And we'll have a presentation from the PLC subcommittee, which was, Christy was on that, and Nolan and myself. So we can start with SMSD 4. Who wants to start that? It's the one about retirement.
Issue statement 4.
So, I asked Dr. Schumacher to send me his presentation that he did last year, and it is literally just wanting us to reconsider that. That's the only reason we raised it. There is, Dr. Schumacher mentioned that last year that the district is working toward going to a single provider for those retirement accounts, and with that trying to get a push in incentivizing all staff members, all employees to start that account. And I thought what might be helpful is just to read our joint statement that we had about that. So the joint statement, and this is from April 5th, 2023, states that Dr. Schumacher gave a presentation to the team and explained that although we offer a 403B retirement plan for all employees, very few professional employees are contributing to a plan. It is largely administrators who are contributing. And he shared that Human Resources wants to ensure that teachers are aware of and informed about the plan benefit, and Human Resources wants to support our professional employees in having sufficient retirement savings and being financially prepared to retire once they become CAPERS eligible. He shared that one solution to this issue could be automatically opening a 403B account upon employment in the district, and the district making an annual contribution to that. Unlike CAPERS or some other employee retirement plans that you may be familiar with, he did not propose as a solution that there would be any required contribution at all from the employee. When we talked about it last year, as a reminder, we didn't, there's probably some minimum contribution. I don't think you can put $1 in someone's account, but it's probably pretty small. And so it was something that we asked that the teams consider when we have when we're doing our analysis of compensation and benefits overall. What I think might make sense is that when we come back and have the presentation after the benefits committee is met and we know our exact renewal increase expense, that we could then again talk about what that would look like more concretely and what that would mean. But again, it's just something that we'd like to consider and propose. We also again talked about last year about all the importance of education about that when new employees come in. And I know Human Resources since that time has made efforts to ensure and encourage that the information is there. But the thought was, hey, if it's already set up for you, maybe you don't contribute your first 5 years, but maybe you're in a position after that you have that account open and you want to start doing that. So that's really all I have to share on that.
So the issue statement, I put it, how do we, in front of something that you said.
Oh, yes.
Would it be, how do we help ensure professional employees have sufficient retirement resources?
Mm-hmm.
And you currently have a 403B, not a lot of participation from, as a professional employee, is more from administration.
Yeah.
And this wouldn't replace anything regarding CAPERS, it would be a supplement to or.
It would, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then right now, there, for the administrative employees and others that do participate in the 403B, is there an employer contribution to it?
No.
No employer contribution?
There's no required matching or anything like that. Of course, that would be within the realm of possible solutions. The district puts in this much, but if you put in this much, they put in this much. That's all within the realm of possibility. One, and I'm sure you all are aware of this, but of course, a difference in a retirement plan from, for example, Capers, is that that is something that you can take and put in your own personal name should you leave employment with the district, so move on to different employment. And I think that that's something to consider too, because we do have people that leave teaching, and that's unfortunate and that's really sad, but it is something that would ensure that you're prepared for retirement no matter where you are in your professional career.
Well,
when
and you can only do
happens
that
for
with
you.
Capers after you've been teaching for 5 years.
Oh,
Sorry. You have to be vested, so you have to have 5
Yes.
years worth of teaching experience to then get that and take it with you.
yes.
I think in 401K and 403Bs, you only have to have the vesting if there was a match. You can only take your money with you,
Yes.
so.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, did you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
How do we do that?
No one's ever not heard me in my entire life, so.
So can you all remind me, where did you go with this last year? I should remember, but
So
I'm,
last year we discussed, it was brought up, and then I think we kind of like dropped it because I don't know that we had everything set. And so we discussed discussing it again this year.
Yeah.
So that's where we went last year. Because I asked about a potential match, and there were not numbers yet, so.
yeah.
And I think they wanted to move to a single vendor.
Right.
And that's what
And
we
we were
did
in the
this
process of
year.
doing.
And that's what they've done this year. And they have had people come out to the buildings to talk about it. So that's been nice.
Jill?
And just, we're going to have a benefits committee meeting on April 4th. We just figured that out today. Because there's just a few things that we still have to figure out with going to a single vendor.
Yeah.
So I just want to share that
Yep.
timeline.
And I would, Jill, since you raised that, it may be appropriate or may not be, but it could be, something that gets discussed in that meeting as well, because it is a benefits issue, so it would be entirely appropriate. I don't know if that has any impact or would have any impact, but it may make sense in that setting when you're talking with our selected single vendor what, if any benefit does that provide? If we had account, because that would be the addition of 2,000-something accounts, so.
Just to be clear, it's available today, but just low participation.
Yes.
Understood. So it sounds like you all want to revisit this at a later date this year.
Yes,
Okay.
so it would, I think, make sense. And if there's any information that is needed, please let me know. We can make sure that, Human Resources, the Benefits Committee works on getting that to this group. But again, maybe discuss it when we discuss health insurance renewal and we're in that benefits discussion. And then maybe at that time we could brainstorm. I think it makes sense at that time to brainstorm possible solutions.
I do know there's a few questions that we're kind of wanting to know about that you might not have the answers, but just so we're prepared, that we can have the answers to those questions. So any potential financial gain from the district from moving to one vendor and more staff to open retirement accounts? So is there a financial benefit to that, and what would that financial benefit be? Would be a question.
Okay.
To the financial,
To the district?
to the district.
Yes.
I think the benefit is all to the participants in those plans
That-
because there's less administrative cost.
Okay.
That would
I
be,
think, but we will get you a
Yeah, and then-
definitive answer.
And a follow-up to that, if there is that financial benefit, will that financial benefit be redistributed to benefit staff?
Is that a topic of bargaining in here? I mean, right?
So
I see.
the budget is not, but benefits is something,
Yes.
what a benefit is negotiated. And, okay, so can you, that last question, if there is cost savings?
so essentially, does the district get $10,000 back from whatever company does the 403B because of the higher participation? Will that $10,000 or whatever be distributed to the members that have selected a plan? I don't believe that there's any cost benefit back to the district. It is all part of the plans, but I'm not a financial expert, so don't hold me to that.
So yeah, if we could just then double
Yeah.
check with someone, yeah.
I think I have heard the term basis points used a couple times, and it has to do with the administrative cost. And just like, it's very similar, I think, the analogy to health insurance, right? Like, it is beneficial to us to be part of a large group plan. And those administrative costs, when absorbed over a large group, end up being lower, so our premiums end up being better for what we get from a health insurance perspective. So I think it's very similar for a retirement plan. The more employees you have in one plan, so just taking our current group going 4-to-1, they want that, right? The provider wants that. That's attractive to them, and it just becomes more attractive, and they give less administrative costs the larger that group is. And so
Right.
that is where the committee might have to ask that question, and yeah.
Okay.
Well, today I was able to speak with one of the people, and the fees to us, as the person electing into the retirement account, the fees are almost like half of what it was originally, because I was already with Corebridge, so it was pretty easy for them to kind of talk to me about the differences. And then also they had told me, which was good to know, I guess maybe I should meet with them every single week, every single year, that I did not actually have someone like looking at my portfolio, like just a computer was like auto-generating what I should be making. So good to know about that. So it was like, I would also recommend that people sit down with the person every year to kind of look at that, so. But it did say I was making good high-risk money on it, so.
You're young, it's great. Be risky. Okay, so I guess we'll table that until a future date and then come back to it.
Awesome.
All right, so we are moving on to SMSD 3 and NEA-SM 3 and SMSD 3. And so do we want to start with the PLC subcommittee presentation?
That makes sense.
Okay. I will open it, and then I will,
And can you let us know who all was on the PLC committee? Okay.
okay, let me bring up the presentation. There it is. Let me share the screen.
Others that weren't at this table too, but sitting in the room right now, Amber, Christie, and myself. Yeah.
Sorry, it's like only, there it goes.
And Jill. Jill was on that.
And Jill.
I saw her hand.
Okay. Okay, so I just wanted to start off by saying that we are coming up with a proposal, but we do expect to continue to meet to come up with solutions that will better meet all of the interests that are listed on the next screen. So this is just a proposal that we want, but we want to continue to work. We know that this may not work for everybody.
And we're hoping to meet early.
Yes.
Or than later in order to streamline the process.
So here were some of the interests that we had identified. We do not want to change the elementary
Can I
contract.
just take a real pause? 'Cause
Yes.
You guys are really good at somehow taking your committee work and sort of dovetailing it into your IBB work. But do remind me, did the interest you identified come out of the interest you worked up in here?
I believe
Or
so,
was it
and
just
the
worked by the
subcommittee.
committee?
Yeah, I know we started our first subcommittee, we took turns going back and forth on interests. NEA-Shawnee Mission would provide interest, and then Shawnee Mission would provide an interest as well.
Yeah, the only thing I just want to say, just because I don't want to bring it up later and then not, and I don't want to be critical, just sort of a point I want to make is, do not change elementary contract time would be a position and not an interest, but there probably is an interest behind that. And what would it be?
It was because last year when we worked to kind of come up with the solution, then our bargaining unit was not happy about the thought of adding time to the contract day. So like currently, it's 7 hours and 40 minutes, is that right?
Yep.
And so we wanted to add 10 minutes and 10 minutes, 10 to the beginning, 10 to the end. Do you
Okay.
remember that?
Got it. I do remember that now.
20
Because our
minutes.
secondary works
So
8
you all are
hours a
just
day.
flagging under frame and focus that that's an unacceptable piece.
Yes.
Right,
We-
and
that
I
would-
just don't want you guys in the habit of putting positions under interest. So in other words, you're just flagging like, hey, last time you explored that, it was unacceptable. So I would say that's kind of a frame and focus. But, just to be, sometimes we do have to be specific in the process.
And then-
Otherwise, you get in the habit of putting positions under interest. But thank you for that explanation. I understand now.
And then one consistent option, so we were looking at only having one option instead of two options, or when we started 4 options for the school day for PLC for all teachers, and that's pre-K through 6th grade classrooms. So we're kind of looking at, right now, we would like it to be the same across pre-K through 6th grade, but right now, we really can only have it look like K through 6 classroom teachers. This really isn't applying to like specialists, special education, pre-K, those specialized groups, social workers, nurses. The plan that we're looking at right now is just going to be for that K through 6th grade classroom teachers, and that all schools will still have the flexibility to choose the day of the week. So the option is going to be the one option, but people will have the flexibility of what day they choose to meet. We were given 2 options that staff were okay with and that we have right now in our current pilot program, and we want to keep it similar to the existing pilot program. We have Tuesday staff meetings right now. We would like it to be lean more towards being called professional development or professional learning instead of a staff meeting. Some meetings are canceling staff meetings. Some buildings are doing more informational meetings, like stuff that could maybe come out in an email instead of like being professional learning. We want this time to be productive use of the time, like I said, not stuff that would be able to be put in an email and read, or like a PB, a principal's bulletin, and we want to ensure that all elementary staff, so everybody, are able to attend the Tuesday staff meeting. So like currently what we have is we have 2 staff meetings a month, and one of those staff meetings is for people who are SPED, ELL, pre-K, social workers, nurses. They all attend theirs here at the CA, at the CAA, or at a different location that's specialized to them. But then as a whole building, we only have 1 staff meeting where everybody can attend. And so our other thing is we want more staff meetings or building PD time for all of the staff to attend together. And then the very last one is we want to limit the burden on parents. So not really changing, like making less school days. Yes, is little changes for them. Yes. Those are our interests. So our current program is that we have PLC during the plan time one day every week. That's option number 1. So how that looks like is people do their PLC once during the week during their plan time. Or the other option was that people could choose from was that they do PLC out of a month, they PLC 2 times during the week during their plan time, and then the other 2 times of the month, they PLC on a Tuesday after school. In lieu of like a staff meeting, they do PLC. So we are utilizing this plan time right now for PLC, both options. You have to use you use your plan time to PLC. A lot of P's. Okay. We are reimbursing the staff for the lost plan time by giving them that after school time to plan instead of having staff meetings. So that's where we used to have 4 staff meetings. We now have 2 staff meetings and really only 1 staff meeting, all as one building staff. And then most of our staff, when we surveyed them, so I want to say the people that took this survey, most of the people who took that survey chose option 1. So that was the reason why we did our proposed plan of keep the pilot program. This is going to be a pilot program for 2024, 2025 with only 1 option, K through 6th grade classroom teachers only. And so with our proposed plan, we would still be utilizing plan time for PLC, but we will only have 1 option, and that option would be that we would PLC during our plan time and not have option 2 of them being able to PLC after school. So everybody would have 1 consistent PLC time during the school day, during their plan time. They still would have the flexibility to choose what day they PLC, and they still would get reimbursed for 2 staff meetings as plan time. So we would still continue to have 2 staff meetings. One of those would be the specialized one. One of that would be the one all as a staff. And then the other 2 for the month would be plan time. And then we also are adding 2 PD days to the calendar for next year and beyond, we hope. And so some considerations that we had were changing the name from staff meeting to professional learning. The reason for that is because we are looking at, hopefully, if we do at least one of those staff meetings as professional development, we're hoping that that could count towards student minutes if everybody was doing that. We want to have consistency across all of our buildings, and just mainly equity too, because if some buildings are having a staff meeting twice a month and attending that, we would like everybody to have a staff meeting, not some people canceling. Also, like I said, the possibility of counting the Tuesday professional learning as half-day student minutes. And so I think that's all we have. Any questions?
How many years?
This has been quite a few years, and we're not there yet. I feel like we're not where we want to be, so.
Thank you for everyone who's done the work on that. I know it's been a lot, so thank you.
Do we know about the potential of being able to count Tuesday professional learning as a half student minutes? No.
We asked Darren Dennis about that, and he thinks that it's a possibility. I think he was thinking if all levels, like secondary and elementary, all had a Tuesday that they all had a staff meeting that was professional learning, that we could count that time. It wouldn't be a lot, but I mean, it'd be a little bit extra to cushion, right? Because a PD day counts as half student minutes. So he thought that, yeah, it definitely was a possibility.
Okay.
I have a question. If this is a consideration, is this something that we have agreed to and that we are agreeing to at this point? Okay.
No,
Just something we're talking about. Okay, thank you.
It's a recommendation from the committee, is that correct?
Yeah, we, in our process collective commitment, did a more detailed outline, because in the past we've had questions about, well, what does this work group or subcommittee mean? What power or authority does it have? And we decided as a team that they could bring advisory recommendations, but that ultimate decision-making would be by this team.
The last time you all met on this was, or that I have a document on, was 5/17. And it looks like at that time, that's when you said, send back to committee with concerns. Look at new way or previous options, including late start. That's the result. This is the result of that, right?
When we tested late start against the burden to parents, is kind of where that fell.
Just as a reminder, some of the issues were bargaining unit misunderstood the first time around, perception about morning meetings, taking instructional minutes, childcare on both ends, buddy systems, space, and possible sub-concern, losing flexibility, maybe lack of buy-in regarding PLCs at elementary level, consequences for middle school and all this. But I haven't read that the things the committee were supposed to consider was A, B, C, and D, narrow options, eliminate 3 and 4. Meet on and negotiate MOU in 1 year, does not expire for 2. Better teacher ed on PLCs, better explanation of plan as committee works. I don't know what that was. Does that make sense to you all? Communicate earlier, more effectively. Those are the only notes I have on this. If it helps for folks that were not here and how we got here. Were you here last year in May? I don't think this.
No.
I was part of the committee last year, but I was not on the
Okay, so, yeah, that's how we got to this, I guess. So in terms of taking it from here, Amber, where do you think we are going on this? Seeing if there is consensus around the recommendation and/or opening it up for other options and other questions? Is that what we're thinking?
Yes, either looking for consensus on this, or if anybody has any other questions, concerns, are there any ideas? I mean, this has been a 3 or 4 year process, and so we're slowly like whittling away. And like I said, we're not where we want to be, but we did want to come up with something that was consistent for all buildings. So.
I was not on this team last year either, but I have watched for several years online with many other people. And one of the things I remember from the conversations previously is surveys that have been gone out to try to get a gauge of the consensus. And there's been, I think, the results of that survey was that it was sort of split amongst several topics, but in the slides we've gone over here, it sounds like we feel like there's more consensus than there has been in the past.
From the people that took their survey, I just want to keep saying that. Because because we didn't obviously get everybody to take the survey, so I want to just keep saying that it was the people that took the time to take the survey. Most of those people have chosen option one.
Yes,
Everybody had the opportunity. That is true, to have their voice heard.
And just in terms of, would this mean an update to the current MOU? Just technically, where would this go?
It would be an update, but we would only have option one instead of two options.
I see.
So we have, I just pulled up our P&A, and it is on page 44 as a pilot program applicable to the current school year. So I think that was the second year we had it in the P&A. So there is actual P&A language that would have to be modified. And a question that I had is that we said, okay, so weekly staff meetings are suspended with regard to pre-K through 6, and instead this following provision would apply. So a thought that I had from a P&A perspective is, if we build this in, do I need to write some mechanism that says, hey, if we as a district stop doing PLCs, right, we just go back to the old schedule, right? Like, do I need to do something like that? Or would we just, that'd be something we would have to negotiate?
Or use the current language that we have, because all we're really changing is just instead of having two options, just having one option. Because this is only a 1 year, right?
So you're thinking do this as a pilot program
Yes,
again?
yes.
Got it.
It's a
This is
pilot
still a
program.
pilot.
Oh, got
It's a
it.
new pilot program.
Got it. That answers my question.
So you're still operating under the MOU, a different version of a pilot?
Well, it's in the P&A.
Yeah.
So it's in the P&A as a pilot program
Got it.
for 1
And
year.
then part of the reason we chose to pilot this is if we, the interest of ensuring that we have enough time for professional development, seeing if those 2 additional days added into the school year provide or meets that interest.
Got it.
So that's a pretty large reason we decided to pilot. as
Where
of
do we
right
get
now.
those days from?
They added them during the
Yeah.
calendar this year. Dr. Dennis added those.
Dr. Dennis, yeah.
It doesn't add contract days, though.
No.
No, it
We,
doesn't.
I mean, we'd have to renegotiate
187
more
days.
contract days, so
I
no.
assumed I wasn't changing that, but, okay.
Yeah.
I might be able to share one.
Yeah.
I think that over the last couple of years, we've had seniors, actually, hopefully they're not listening, but we've had their graduation just a little bit later in May than it had been previously, so that's kind of helped with senior minutes. And so I think Darren was able to actually take some student days and change them to PD days.
Okay.
Because we still get half student minutes on those days.
Got it.
So I guess there was just enough cushion
Yep.
with our minutes to do that.
So what you're telling me is Dr. Dennis did some magic.
We worked together. I
And the
advocated a
days
little
came
bit.
out of thin air. Got it. No, awesome.
Are there other questions about it for the committee? Do folks feel like there's consensus where we probably want to do thumbs on this? I'm not hearing other ideas surface, but yeah, you want to do thumbs on it? See where we're at? Here means I love it, here means good enough, or if you're here, we'll keep talking. Okay.
I will do homework and try to share it in advance like I always do to give people time to read it, go back and read it, shoot me a message. But it'll be, it should be pretty simple modification of our current. So I'll do a draft tentative agreement that reflects this consensus.
Wow, you all started this, now that I'm looking, 2021. And you really dove deep on the frame and focused and your interest.
I mean, I think that it like, for those of us who are on the team and who always have people in our ear and do this work, it's an arduous, stressful process. But issues like this show me that it ends in a solution that both sides feel like they've fully been heard, that works, that we didn't do so quickly that things weren't considered. And hopefully, like in future years, if there are issues that just where, people are expressing we need time to study and consider, we remember this and say, okay, some things just do that. It's going to take a couple years, and people need to get data and get comfortable and get creative.
All right, good work, guys.
I think we have a couple more things to do within this one, though. Like, we wanted to talk about our special staff that teach 6 classes per day, and that which is, some of them are teaching 24 classes over 4 days, which is like 400 to 500 students over 4 days. So that's like one of the things that we wanted to bring up. So we have more issues to kind of focus on within that plan time and daily schedule. That was one of the things. Also, we would like more structure, to talk about more structure for the traveling teachers so that they're not split. And like getting 30 minutes of travel time. Some people have like 23 sections, and just making it equitable, because some people because when they travel, some of them have more sections than someone that's not a traveling teacher. So we're looking to kind of get some equity for those teachers. Also, still talking about SPED staff that are teaching 6 classes at the secondary level. And just also same thing about the work-life balance, because even with our PLC plan that we have, it really isn't really helping add more plan time to the teacher day.
And did your committee look
This is
deeply at these
NEA-Shawnee.
issues? And
Yeah, this is NEA-Shawnee Mission 3, but it was the same topic.
did you all go deep on this where you have recommendations also, or you feel like this team needs to frame and focus these issues?
Yes, right.
This team
I
needs
think
to
we
frame
need
and
to do
focus.
that 'cause
Frame
it's
and
new
focus.
for this year.
Okay. And did you do separate issue statements, or it sounds like you?
Yeah,
okay.
there's separate, they have one around this and we have one. Was yours just only around PLC is what you were thinking about yours? Okay, so then you feel like we addressed that, so then I guess it's just ours.
I heard 3 different ones, I think.
So our issue statement was, how do we ensure staff have a daily schedule that allows them time to plan, modify lessons, contact parents, collaborate with colleagues, et cetera, to successfully meet the needs of all students? And then that part that I just said was like focusing the issue, so.
But there are going to be probably different solution for
Yes.
SPED teacher, different solution for traveling, different solution for specials. So it could be, hate to do it like this, but truth is, to unmuddle it, you might have to have, how do we provide more structure for traveling teachers? And then it sounded like equity was an interest under that, and other things, because your solution will be specific to traveling teachers. And then,
specialists.
what would your how do we be on specials? That was the 400 students in 5 days. Is it a matter of their ability to do, how would you do the how do we under specials teachers? How do we ensure specials teachers have adequate, is that planning?
Well, how do we ensure that they have equitable amount of students that they're seeing? Because some people are not seeing as many students as others if they have more sections. Does that make sense?
But is there a problem, is there a problem below what you're trying to solve? In other words, do they not have enough plan time, not enough travel time, not enough,
Well, sometimes if they're traveling teachers, their plan time is split between 2 different buildings. So like we get the 50-minute plan time, but then sometimes people are getting half of their plan time at one building and half at another. And then also traveling, they also have to eat lunch in that time.
is it an equitable workload? Or are you really talking about student count?
I don't think it's an equitable workload for people that have to travel. I've traveled before.
You do or don't think it's workload?
What do you guys think?
That, yes.
I'm trying to
that
get, like, are we
is-
really going to say, how do we make sure we have an equitable number of students? Is that the
Or
issue?
an equitable workload.
Or is it
That's-
the
yeah, that's
workload
what
that
I
the
was
So
students
if they
create?
have more, I mean, I don't want to say a solution, so I'm just trying to stick with, we want it to be an equitable workload, I guess,
Okay,
is what
so-
we should say.
And students impact that, number of
Yes.
students impact that.
Correct.
I'm just
yes.
saying, if we look at workload, we look at more comprehensive solutions versus if just number of students, you're going to focus on reduction of students. Maybe that's not the solution, maybe it is, maybe it's not. So then how do we provide specials with a more equitable workload? Manageable and equities and interest, manageable workload.
Manageable.
And then what is your
equitable.
how do we on the 6 classes in secondary level for SPED? Is that about workload? Is that about plan time?
workload, because they're teaching 6, and some are teaching 5. Because remember, we have an MOU about teaching 5 classes at the secondary level. Some SPED teachers are teaching 6.
Special education is not mentioned in that language, it's just for the general education.
So it did break us out into 3 different issue statements, but I feel like that's necessary. Otherwise, your solutions are not going to be applicable to everyone, and that may be a little more time-consuming. When we think about what we want to approach today, you had one that we were going to try to get to later today. That was, didn't we have issue number, did we have another issue statement we were
It
going
was
to try
just
to?
these 2 is what I said.
It was which one?
It was these 2.
Oh, it was these, okay, so then this is a good day to start these, I guess, then, if you planned on it. Okay, well then, shall we jump into frame and focusing and just sort of go in order, perhaps, starting with more structure for traveling teachers?
Can we, so that we can spend the entire rest of the meeting on that, can we review the draft TA that I did on the late resignation, and then we
Knock
can
that out.
just use all the rest of the time?
It's perfect.
Thanks.
While you all are doing that, I'm going to figure out a screen share here, and I'll do notes on the issue statement of how do we provide more structure for traveling teachers.
Okay, I had shared with everybody, and I think everybody, or a lot of people I know had reviewed it, because we worked back and forth on some comments. But this was my stab at a draft TA on what we talked about at our last meeting regarding our exemption, it was a new exemption that we added last year, to allow an employee who has a medical issue that is qualifying under FML, gets approved for 12 weeks of leave, and then determines they're just not able to return at the end of that. So this is essentially our medical exemption. And what it does is say, hey, if you have a medical issue, there are protected avenues for that you should be going down. And we think it's reasonable that if you're off for 12 weeks and you can't come back, that we would, of course, then release you if you wanted to be released. And so the specific problem that we were trying to solve is what we do about professional employees who aren't eligible yet for FML, because it's really confusing, and how do you use that process because you don't actually get FML leave. And so the revision that I made states that if you're not eligible for release, let's see, if you do not meet FMLA eligibility requirements because you haven't worked for the district for at least 1,250 hours during the previous 12 months, then you're not eligible for release under this section, and rather you should work with Human Resources for job accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so, certainly the way that would work, let's talk in an extreme case that you are a brand new teacher and you have a very serious cancer diagnosis and you are just hospitalized, right? You're not eligible for FML, and you are hospital bound. The district would work with you on an ADA accommodation, and it is intended to give you job accommodations that allow you to work. But if that's not possible, it may be reasonable to release from contract under that situation. It just wouldn't be done under the FML framework. The other thing that I did, because we talked so much about how this was a little confusing, I didn't want to create the perception that providing an FML certification equals immediate release from contract, right? You remain employed for those 12 weeks when you're taking job protected leave. And so what I suggested was that we say, you don't turn it in with your FML paperwork, start your leave, take 4 weeks, take a month. And if you get to a month and you realize you cannot come back, at that point you can turn in a resignation. And it would be totally okay if you gave a heads up, I don't think I'm gonna be able to come back, but we wouldn't actually HR wouldn't actually give the go-ahead till you had started your leave. I think by a month, it would be reasonable that you could make that call or make that decision. I know, Nolan, you had made a comment about the distinction between using the FMLA acronym and FML. So FMLA is a Family Medical Leave Act, and when you just say FML, it just means Family Medical Leave. So.
Okay, that good clarification. Thank you. I was just getting confused on all of the different acronyms, and thank you.
And again, if we, obviously, we negotiate on a regular schedule, I'm hopeful that, we tested and tried this and this would make it more clear and straightforward, but if we have somebody and it's not working for them, it's something we could come back and look at again. Any concerns about the red lines or the changes I had on that? Okay, I'll take off the draft and add signature lines and send it to Amber for signature, and we can cross off that issue.
Awesome, thank you, Rachel. So let's kind of shift gears here. So let's frame and focus. How do we provide more structure for traveling teachers? If you remember, frame and focusing is really describing the problem. What's happening, what problem, what used to happen, what might be some causes, what is it resulting in? Just dig deep and describe the problem. So I know the association brought this issue forward, so you all generally open up and sort of say why you brought it forward. Anybody that has experience with traveling teachers and you have a perspective that's from a different angle, we'll invite that too, right? It's really about sort of all perspectives of a problem, and then we'll start talking about interest and solutions. So who wants to tell us about the problem? Yeah, look, I'm looking at Amber, you want to tell me.
Okay, so I think part of it is when you have to travel, I do think it's difficult on like lunchtime. Right now I can speak from my own experience about when I was a traveling teacher. So like one of the things is sometimes I would get caught at my other school, and so it'd be hard to make it to my second school on time because I was split. Like the way that we decided to do it is that we would split in between the day. And I know some people go different days, but so I feel like lunch is difficult. Getting all your plan time is difficult because if you're caught doing something and then you're like, oh, I have to get to my other building, that's difficult. It's difficult to build relationships with both staff. So like you have two staff that you're trying to build a relationship with and work with. I think that's difficult.
Can you describe what a traveling teacher's schedule might look like in a day?
I can describe
For
what
folks
mine
who
look
may not
like.
know, okay.
And then I can try to describe what I've heard from Jill about specialist. So my schedule was that I would work until my lunchtime at one school. And then when it was my lunchtime, over my lunchtime, I was traveling to my second school. And then I would eat lunch in the car and do plan time when I got to my second school. So it was like exactly half the day. That's how mine was. I didn't
And then the
alternate.
second half of the afternoon, then after your plan time at the second school would go into teaching. Are all traveling teachers doing two schools, or could it be?
It could be more, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, it could be significantly more schools.
Okay.
So I'm happy to talk about a traveling music teacher schedule. I won't use any names, but I'll give you kind of a rundown of what their schedule looks like. So.
Can I just pause and say, do all specials teachers travel?
No.
Okay. So we wouldn't want to combine this issue with the other one of workload for specials. That's a separate issue. But there are some specials that travel, I understand. Okay.
So I'll just take I've got a number of examples. We've got one teacher that starts his day at an elementary school, spends 40, 50 minutes there, has 30 minutes of travel time, goes to a middle school, it looks like, teaches the middle of the day at middle school, has a 25-minute lunch period, then has a 30-minute travel period, and ends the day at a different elementary school. And then at the end of the day has plan time. So that teacher has 30 minutes of travel time anytime there's travel between schools, and a 25-minute built-in lunch. There's another teacher, 2 days out of the week, they start their day with an elementary school. The other 2 days of the week, they start with plan time, and then the Friday alternates. 30 minutes of travel time, they go to 2 different elementary schools, 25-minute lunch, 30 minutes of travel, different elementary schools, 30 minutes of travel, different elementary schools, ends the day with plan. When we
Who
build
sets
the
the schedule?
schedules,
Yeah.
when we build the music schedules, and when I say we, I mean me, there are blocks of time for 30 minutes of travel. You can be traveling from one elementary school to another that's literally 2 miles away that takes 5 minutes. You get 30 minutes of travel time. There's a 25-minute lunch built into the schedule.
By the way, is the 30-minute in the contract? Or in the-
It is not.
Okay, the 25-minute lunch, I'm assuming.
25-minute lunch is built into
So
the
some
contract.
schedules have 30 minutes for travel and a built-in 25, and that's for specials. Then because you build the specials traveling teachers' schedules, you know that.
Yeah.
But what are the other traveling teachers?
Yeah, so when we have secondary, and I'll speak to secondary, I can't speak to Amber because she's elementary. When we have teachers that travel between middle schools and high schools or between two middle schools, that travel time is part of their supervision hour, and they're given a minimum of 30 minutes to complete that travel time. We don't necessarily build out the schedules
Yeah.
like I have on Excel for music, because it's a little bit easier. It's, hey, you have fifth period as your travel period. Get over to the other school as quickly as you can,
Got it.
AKA 30 minutes.
So in some instances, it could really be a benefit with a little extra time, but when you're talking about if you get held over and you're still in the building and it's already gone into your travel time, or perhaps lunchtime, talk about frequency of that and why that happens.
For me, it was for, I would say there was a lot of trauma at our school, so it was helping with kids that were struggling. And so building those relationships because I was working with those kids. Also, the position I was doing was an interventionist, so it'd be like maybe transitioning kids back to their class and then talking with the teacher if there was something that had happened. So doing that communication. But I also think like with this, it's even like the equity amongst, like for the specialist about not doing different levels. Like some people doing elementary and middle or middle and high, that's not really equitable if someone's like at one school and they're only doing elementary. Does that kind of make sense about that piece?
I think we need to be a little careful on saying that because.
Well, I don't understand what you're saying, first of all.
So he was saying that some people teach music at the elementary school and then go to the middle school, so they're teaching two different levels of music. Or maybe, like I think he had said, some people were doing
just
middle and high
elementary
school.
music, different elementary
So maybe
schools,
keeping
okay.
it at they're just teaching elementary or just teaching middle or just teaching high school, because they're really having to, I feel like, know a lot of more standards. They're having to know elementary standards, middle school standards, and high school standards. So that's not really equitable, right? Because like if someone's only teaching elementary music, then they would only be working with elementary standards.
Is it related to structure?
Yes, that's what I think we're trying to get at, that we want it to be an equitable structure for all specialists.
And I think one of the other issues
Not
was,
necessarily time,
like, we
because there are different solutions. Because that is, how do we provide traveling specials teacher equitable pay for their work,
Yes.
right? Which is different than us figuring out scheduling issues around structure. Not that it's not a legitimate issue, and I can throw in here equity as an interest, but under frame and focus, you've leaped a little bit, and that's okay, just trying to determine if we leave it in this issue statement. Because or would you say that it would be part of structure if their prep looks different, so they need more time, but if you're saying the pay is not equitable because they have to have more skill, then that's not time structure, it may be another issue statement.
But I'm wondering if it is.
And maybe it's not about pay, but I want to hear
But
more
I'm
about
wondering
it.
if it is time. I don't know anything about elementary.
That's what I
either.
assumed, it was
By
time
the way,
because of
like
prep.
elementary is not my jam, so I apologize if I say something that's like silly.
And I can speak to our,
Well, real quick, what were you going to say, though? So you won't lose your thought, and then
Sorry,
what have you
so
done?
in secondary, or at least at high school especially, because I know middle school doesn't do blocks, but high school teachers do blocks. So we have larger units, I don't want to say blocks, but larger blocks of time, I guess. So with the traveling, then you have that, where I feel as elementary teachers don't get that because their day is so structured. Not that ours isn't, but theirs is more like, you don't get large gaps of time with small humans to do things. So I'm wondering if that's part of it, but I could be wrong. I don't
Jeremy,
know.
you were going to jump in, and I think you were next.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. I think we need to hear from everybody so we can kind of sort it out together.
I don't think, I would venture that there are some traveling teachers who enjoy traveling between elementary and middle and even high school and the different levels. So I can.
The variance of the different.
Is that primarily I'm thinking of a teacher in my building, it's strings. Is that kind of?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Because they want to build their program.
Right.
And the way that you build the program is you start them as elementary and you see them through.
Got it.
Yes, and the music schedules that I'm talking about, traveling between 7 elementary schools, strings teachers. So-
Under frame and focus, and Shelley, I know you've got something. Is it Shelley?
Christy.
Christy, that's right. You remind me of my sister Shelley, and that's why I say that. Some travel
I'll be
between
your
levels
sister
and some
too.
do not. I'm going to flag that for now. We'll keep hashing it out and figure out where it lies, maybe in this issue, maybe in a different one.
So I can speak a little bit to, like, specials teachers, art, music, PE, library, our
Okay?
specials teachers, they travel. Like, their schedule is from 8:10 to 8:30. They don't have kids. It can be counted as a planned time. It's 20 minutes, but it's
Just time.
just time. They have 2 classes from 8:30 to 10:20, 2 different 50-minute classes. Then they all have a planned time from 10:20 to 11:10. And then they have another class till 12. They have a lunch, 12 to 12:30. And then 3 of the 4 have a class, and then the 4th person has a plan from 12:30 to 1:20. And then they have from 1:20 till 2:10 to go to their other building. And then they have one section or one class at their other building. So
There are real
they-
differences here between
Yeah.
what I've heard from you, and from you. It's interesting. Real quick flag for me, is it specials, library interventionists that travel, or are there other titles or other specialties?
Anyone can travel.
Oh, really? Okay, just where the
Yeah.
need is. Okay, gotcha.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Is that where equity comes in, perhaps? I mean, I'm hearing some real open time for some teachers.
And we do use our specials teachers. We ensure that they have their 50 minutes a day, but we do use them to help with our intervention time.
Yeah, okay. So what may sound like open time, they may be hands-on.
Yes.
Just depends. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Interesting.
Because we want to keep it equitable with classroom teachers, 50 minutes is what classroom teachers get for planned time. So any time over that 50 minutes, we try to make sure
They're
that
available if they're
they're
needed.
available to help.
Guys, tell me how many folks travel in this bargaining unit or in this district?
Dr. Higgins?
I wouldn't be able to.
A lot.
Say.
Hundreds?
Oh, I don't.
Jill said a lot. Did you say a lot?
Do you have numbers?
I don't have numbers, I just said a lot, sorry.
Is it just a ballpark? Hard to say. And does it?
I don't know.
Could a teacher travel part of the year and then not traveling anymore? Because you feel the needs?
I wouldn't say no.
Okay.
Just as maybe a piece of an indicator, at Hawker Grove, we have about 60 teachers, and 3 of our teachers travel.
Let's get back down to this. Some traveling teachers teach between levels. I don't know if I'm using the right phrase, between elementary and middle or high, right? And some do not.
Well, but I think we just talked about that. I think it's more of like just your band and your orchestra and maybe choir depending on,
Right, but we didn't really unpack, is there an equity issue around structure to include in here under frame and focus? I just made the note, some travel between levels, some don't, but I don't know that I got back to what Amber was trying to say. I'm still trying to put my finger on the equity issue there. Because I heard it as skill or certification.
So, this is what I think if people are okay traveling.
Your
between
mic's not
levels,
on.
I think if people are okay traveling between levels,
Yeah.
if they could be given that option instead of like forced to do it, if they could, like since it sounds like he said some people like doing that, if they were given the option to do that. But also I think like really what we're looking for is like equity in the number of sections that specialists have. I think is our big, yes, that are traveling. Just making sure that it's equitable to people who are not traveling. We don't want someone that's traveling to have more sections than someone that's out of school and not traveling. Is our
Can I ask a
overall-
clarifying question? When you say sections, you mean like classes, right?
Yes.
Got it, thank you.
You know my world now every day. And I'll go ask Teamsters some questions tomorrow.
So I think that does go back to what Christy was just talking about, though. So, you could have a specialist teacher that's traveling that between their two schools has 24 PE sections, whereas a specialist teacher that isn't traveling only has 18 sections. But those other 6 sections, when they're free during the day, they're not sitting there with their feet kicked up. They are hands-on, they are providing interventions, they are doing other things throughout the building that could be classified with those other 6 sections. Is that,
So
am
there
I
may be
correct in
an
that,
overlap in
Christy?
this
That's accurate.
discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this discussion may overlap into the manageable workload for specials when we get to that. What other frame and focus do you guys need? These are just bullet pointed, sort of how people see it or what's happening. Can I ask a few probing questions? Remember sort of those probing questions, the more we hear, the more we're going to get to solutions that make sense. So one is, how long do you think this issue has existed? Has something changed with traveling teachers that has made the situation feel less tolerable? Is something being done with traveling teachers that wasn't done before, or is it just a new thing?
I think there's some traveling teachers who are having a higher number of sections to teach than teachers who are not traveling.
Okay.
I think the burden of using that travel time and still having, 24 sections.
Okay. So this different number of sections between traveling and non has maybe grown or become more prevalent. Anything else folks want to add in on this? What experience you have? Even if you're not a traveling teacher, what do you see? What do you know about what happens in your school? Anything?
I mean, I think we got a lot of information from Pam Lewis on this because this issue was raised before.
Okay.
And I obviously in my position cannot at all speak to this issue, but she gave a lot of information about the need to make sure that we're really efficient with our staff, that they do their best every single year to balance out to the greatest extent possible and to work with individual staff who are having scheduling issues or traveling time issues. So I would just encourage us at some point to go back, or we may need to have, does Pam do the majority of that scheduling, Dr. Higgins?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the different number of sections between traveling and non-traveling teachers, that's an elementary thing. And so Pam is very much.
She would have a wealth of knowledge.
And I think she provided that
Yeah.
last year.
Are you saying that, according to Pam, if there are issues, and it's just part of frame and focus, not that you're discounting it, not that there aren't solutions, but that there should be a route or the ability for traveling teachers to raise those issues?
Yeah.
On their, for their.
I know of instances where, individual teachers have raised concern with their schedule and their ability to get from A to B and.
For themselves?
Yeah.
Got it. That's important to know that.
And sometimes it, is just as easily solvable as the administrator needs to support that teacher in getting out of the building.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, more complex.
It feels like this is going to be one that will be a challenge to think about. There is one solution, right? And if there is one solution, what is it going to do with interest? We'll see. Any other frame and focus that you think of, we can come back to that, guys. But just as a reminder, how do we provide more structure for traveling teachers? I think the frame and focus has helped us understand it if we're not experiencing it ourselves, right? Let's talk about interest. In other words, what's important in this issue? Why do we need to address it? What is it impacting that is an interest of ours? I'm going to say the first one I would say is then teacher satisfaction or morale.
Just going to say.
But that just gives us a start, but you all got to fill in the rest. What else? What other interest do you have here? Both on the administration side and for the teachers, there are some
I would
interest.
say just providing opportunities for students to be able to have the specials that those teachers are traveling to be able to allow for.
So opportunity for students is important to keep access to those classes. How you do it may look different, but they need to have access. Okay.
Not splitting their plan time,
That would be a position or an idea,
consistent plan time,
because there's an interest behind that.
because you can get more done when you have a block of time than time broken up into pieces.
Is that efficiency?
Yes.
Okay. I just got to stop you guys from getting positions up there. Otherwise, you guys are real boxed in when you get to ideas. You'll say, no, we said under interest we couldn't do that, or we wanted to do that, right? So it's really about efficiency. When you're breaking your stuff up, do you ever get momentum?
Right.
So maybe I'll say efficiency/momentum. Would people know what that is when you look back on this? You know, for teacher. Okay.
Appropriate building coverage.
Do you want to say more? That is different than opportunities for student or if it,
Yeah, when, at the secondary level, when a teacher travels, as an administrator, you can't have them for the entire supervision period, so.
so under appropriate building coverage, there are probably interests behind it, which I'm guessing is going to be safety, but what else?
Safety, yeah. Intervention.
And the interest behind that?
Student academics.
And student social emotional.
Other interest? Teacher satisfaction, morale, maybe that, I don't know what your turnover looks like with traveling teachers. You want people that are willing to do it, right? You don't force them to do it, so you have people to, right, you have to have people to say, I will travel? Or,
When it comes to turnover, the retention would be an interest.
in other words, you want to make it something that people feel like is doable, so they keep doing it, right? So then retention would not necessarily mean leaving the district, but keeping them in the role of traveling. Other interest, in other words, why do we need to figure out how to make it better? What are the other interests here?
Maybe on the same line as retention, but I would say recruitment also. I think the more travel involved, the harder it is maybe to attract a teacher to a similar position.
Or unmanageable travel that's involved, yeah, right.
Well,
Okay.
depending on the position though, because we have some teachers, like the strings teachers and advanced teachers, who want to grow their programs. So I think
Say
it would
that again.
depend. We have some teachers, as Dr. Higgins said before, with some of our band teachers or strings teachers who enjoy going between levels because they're able to grow their programs that way.
So that wouldn't apply to all?
Right.
Okay, gotcha, good point. So then, on the flip side, is there an interest in,
I'd also like to say something about like building relationships, because it's really hard when you're at more than one building to build
Yeah,
relationships with
that's-
staff and students when you have so many.
right?
I mean, the more
Let's
students.
come back to that, because I don't want to skip over what you said. You said some folks enjoy it, right? So then, can that fall under teacher satisfaction, and it cuts both ways?
Yes.
I agree,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
And going what Amber just said, I had a conversation with a teacher who is going to have to travel between buildings next year. They were very excited about the potential of building new relationships with even more students. So, yes, I mean, it's very much both ways.
okay. So we'll just flag it, I just didn't want to look like I'm just jumping over that. I knew there was something in here that would cover it, but then what were you saying about relationships, Amber?
That it can be difficult to build relationships with a bunch of students and also teachers. Like when you're split between two buildings, sometimes it's difficult to build teacher relationships because you're not at a building. And then it's also difficult because like your night duties sometimes differ. I'm just talking about from my experience. It's the night duties, like deciding which night duties you're going to do at which school.
So on teacher relationships and connections, relationship for the sake of relationship, I would say, well, you can have those relationships outside of school, but I'm assuming teacher relationships impact student outcomes. Okay, so then teacher relationships and connections, we all know is deeper than just, my buddy, right? But what were you saying about night?
And night duties, like deciding where you would do your night duties. I'm bringing up a lot of things. I'm just talking about from my own personal experience.
I know, but you got to give me the interest behind it because I don't understand it.
Oh, the night duties are, within our contract, it states that we have to go to two?
Five.
Five, sorry.
Five
Not
for
me, yeah,
elementary days.
five night duties per year. And so that's after contract hours. So if you have two buildings, you're trying to figure out which of those buildings you're doing your five and.
And a lot of those, I mean, kind of going off of the relationships, a lot of those duties, especially for a specialist, are relationship building. As a kindergarten teacher, because of like kindergarten roundup and things like that, not as much of mine. But I'm thinking like a carnival. We have a carnival coming up. Specialists could use that as one of their night duties, things like that.
Is this frame and focused, or is it an interest?
Well, for me, I think it's like when it was back to school night and I had two schools, then of course I wanted to be at both back to school nights. When it was conferences, I wanted to be at both buildings for conferences, so.
So I was,
So night duty choices are hard. Is that part of frame and focus?
I think so. I feel like I was doing additional work because as my personal self, I wanted to be at both places. I wanted to talk with parents at one and talk with parents at the other, so I would have to do conferences at
how would
both
You're doing more
buildings.
work.
conferences
Yes.
work for a traveling teacher?
It's a good question.
In programs, how do they
Because I'm
decide?
thinking, if you're at two different schools, you need to meet with families. How do you make yourself available at both schools for that?
In the fall, we have the advantage of there being two nights, and so what we've typically done is split one at each building. In the spring, it's a little trickier because it's down to one. Typically, we would have the teacher choose which route they're going to go and then email the families of the school that they're not going to be at so that they're aware that they won't be available there, but obviously may be available via other communication routes.
And then you have the teachers that say, I'm going to be at both, because you're just going to do it. So I'm going to put under frame and focus that night duty choices are difficult, and they may create more work depending on what the teacher chooses to do. And I think that's just, the reason I'm not going to put it under interest is because remember the reason we do interest is, number one, to make sure whatever solutions you guys are going to look at, you choose the one or the ones that meet most the interest, solve most of the problem, meet most of the interest, and don't harm any. I mean, if I put night choices are difficult, I need an interest behind that we can meet.
I feel like it's the additional work that you have to do, the additional time you have to spend at a building.
So are we now getting into the interest of equity perhaps? And work, right, equity and workload?
Because like even if you enjoy doing it, it's still more.
So I think it's okay to say equity is an issue. I think I've heard you say that several times.
Yeah.
Folks, right? I mean, the reality is there are some teachers that feel like they're working harder if they're traveling.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In relation to time and workload. If we can add interest later if they come up. But, you know, number one, the interests seem joint and mutual, right? Everybody has an interest in student outcomes, and all this is really linked to that, and to teacher recruitment and satisfaction and retention. So let's see if we can problem solve where we can meet most of these needs and not harm any. You know, by way of example, if we come up with a solution that's going to make teacher morale low, it's probably not the right solution, no matter how many of these it solves. Or come up with a solution that pulls opportunities from students. You're going to have to make an active choice to do that. It's an interest here you'd be harming, right? So just as a reminder on why we spend time on interest. Feels time consuming, but it's necessary.
Is fiscally responsible interest?
Say what you mean by that. What in this example, what were you thinking? Because there is a way to say that, but I want to hear what you're thinking on this.
Well, if one of our solutions was to eliminate all traveling teachers, that's not fiscally responsible, so.
Yeah,
And why? It's a no-brainer.
Because we would have to hire significantly
Additional
more
people.
teachers.
Yeah.
So perhaps an unsustainable budget.
Correct.
So fiscally responsible, sustainable, right?
Yes.
And I would also say not create, I mean, management, administration has control over assignment and schedules. They have to meet the requirements in the P&A, but ultimately we need to have an appropriate level of management control and ability to build a master schedule. It is a very, very difficult puzzle.
I want to get to the why behind it, because otherwise it'll sound traditional, right? But let's go back to the meet P&A requirements, would I think be an interest, right? If you do have a P&A that says 25-minute lunches and folks aren't getting it, an interest would be follow the P&A, right? But then you're saying more here. You're saying sort of management obligation and rights, but because I want to get behind that, so it doesn't sound like,
You don't want to have an unsolvable puzzle in your schedule.
yeah.
Right, it has to be able to be put together in a schedule that meets student enrollment needs, right? You're probably better at saying that than me, but I mean, I assume that's what drives the schedule, right, is enrollment.
That's correct. Course requests.
Is it honoring administration's obligation? Administration could be principals, it could be
Yeah.
the district, right? Obligation to student schedule?
Yeah.
Right, a schedule based on student needs,
To meet
right?
student enrollment, yeah.
I just didn't want to verbalize it like, oh, it's management rights, right? Then it starts to become kind of traditionally. But what you're saying is, look, administration's got to do a schedule
Yeah.
that provides what we are committed to providing.
Let me ask a silly question. So when we post a job for a specials teacher, and do we know, like, this is going to be a traveling position, and is that something that we put on the job posting? Because if I'm a music teacher and I want to travel, that may be an attractive, you know, I'm a super outgoing person. Like, I love this. I would go to every building I could, but other people do not like that. And so I'm wondering if there's,
But I also know that changes based on, like, from year to year. So, like,
could.
again, based on numbers. So I know, like, 1 year you're out of school and then our numbers drop. So they need you
now-
at 2 schools now. So it's a case by case.
And Rachel, I think it would depend on the time of year. Like
On the
if,
time
whether
of
you
year.
knew if it was a traveling position or not when you were hiring for it.
when you're hiring for it. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's not a traveling position when you're hired for it, then how do you become a traveler?
Because
It's a
within our
conversation about-
contract, it also says that
It does allow.
I say the board, the upper admin have the ability to move you to wherever you're needed as long as you are certified to teach that area.
Okay,
So
and then-
you're not, like, it's not,
By necessity,
not your school.
your
It's not
specific
your room.
assignment is not something you're
Okay, gotcha,
contractually
gotcha.
entitled to. So
But then
you
if
are
that
a
does
teacher.
happen.
there we go.
You are a teacher, so.
And I may be getting into solutions. I don't want to jump because I never let you all jump, but we're about brainstorm solutions. But if that happens, does then mid-year, does then the teacher sit down with the principal and figure out what the schedule looks like based on?
Yeah.
So it is done together
Yeah.
initially?
Well, it's done together as in the principal usually would come in and be like, hey, this needs to happen because
But is
of
it the
X, Y,
principal
Z.
saying, here's your schedule? Or is it,
Yes and no,
let's sit down and look at what the schedule needs to be?
depending on the situation.
Okay.
I would assume it's different.
Because it might, if you were going between 2 schools, it might depend on what the other school needed. What
Yeah.
you needed versus the
Based
other
on
school
needs,
needed.
yeah.
Yeah, based
Yeah.
on needs.
Yeah.
I have an elementary specialist question. Is there if they're a traveling teacher, is there a maximum number of sections that they can teach, I guess is my question?
That would
Like,
be
you
a
know, if you're a full-time
solution, yeah.
specialist in one building, 24 is your max? But if you're a traveling teacher, is 24 still the number, or is it a little bit less?
I would guess it's less because of the travel time, because we have to allow for the travel time. So like,
I would-
in our schedule, they have a whole 50-minute block, which is what specials blocks are, to travel. So they would lose those sections, because all 4 of mine travel. Now, some of them, some schools, not all 4 travel, just a couple of the specials may have to travel, so, but 24 sections, yeah, is
That's a
the
lot.
max.
That seems like a lot.
That's for maximum
Just
for
everybody?
somebody who's at just one building. But if they're traveling, are they still doing the 24?
I don't think they would be able to, because of
I can't
travel
imagine that
time.
they could do more than that, but I don't know that for sure. I would need to ask Pam that question.
If we're okay with it, I know that Jill has the reason why we brought this issue up in the first place. So if you're all
okay
cool
now.
with it, Jill back here, go and turn her microphone on. You're off.
Can
I
we,
didn't know if we wanted to take a break too at all, or if we want to just push through, because we're
I
ending
think
at
we're going to need,
5:15.
what time are we ending, guys? 5:15?
5:15.
We'll need a break at some time. Thank you for the reminder. Do we want to hear from Jill first or take 10 minutes and come back? You all choose. A cliffhanger, right?
So does that take a break?
Okay, so guys, it's 4:30. Come back at 4:40, no later, because it's really 4:31. So 4:40, no later. I'm going to turn off my mic.
Two.
I'll try to be quick. At the beginning of the year, there were 2 buildings that didn't have a music teacher at the elementary level. And to make sure that the long-term substitutes in those positions were providing the best music program possible, they kind of rearranged some staff in other buildings to have them travel if they weren't going to, or if they were already traveling, actually switch them to a different building to travel. So anyway, the people that reached out to me were just concerned because they were going to be traveling, and from one elementary to another, they would have 23 sections of classes. And then one person that shared with me, they have A, B, C, D days. I don't know if you have heard of that before, where like a kid's on A day has art, on B day they
yeah,
have music,
I
on C, right? So on 3 of those, A, B, and C, this teacher had their plans split, so like 20 minutes in the morning and 30 in the afternoon, or something like that. So 3 of the 4 days in their rotation, they had a split plan, and it was just really starting to weigh on them, and they didn't feel like they were getting enough done, and their plan time also was happening at the other building that they were traveling to help support that long-term sub. So it just didn't feel like a sustainable schedule for them. So that's kind of what it was brought up. So just wanting to look at what is a way to help make sure that they're feeling like they get enough plan time and that it's a nice block of plan and they're still traveling. I don't think it was the fact that they were traveling, because they were going to be traveling anyway. It was just the number of sections they were teaching and trying to get their plan time kind of to work out. So it just so happened that the other teachers in that building that taught library, music, or library, PE, and art, they did not travel to that other building because it was just the music teacher that was supporting the long-term sub music teacher, because they didn't have a full-time.
Because we couldn't
They
fill
didn't
the
have any-
position, correct?
They filled sorry, what?
Because we couldn't fill the position initially?
Initially, yeah, there wasn't a music teacher, to
Yeah.
hire.
And did
Yeah.
it get filled?
At least one of them did. I'm not sure about the second one.
Second one.
But unfortunately, they didn't know about it until the beginning of the year, so it was a change for that teacher at the beginning of the year, which can be stressful. But I think also just having their plan time split instead of a 50-minute chunk.
They couldn't sit down and start anything and.
Yeah.
And to go a little bit off of what Jill's saying too, I don't know the middle school and secondary world, so hopefully my comment doesn't sound bad, but a lot of my work, I need to be in my classroom during plan time. A lot of it I can do on my computer, but there's still so much that I have to do during the day that I need to be in the classroom. And not being in my classroom and having a plan time outside of my classroom sounds miserable. To be honest, I'm not going to be as productive. True.
Well, I'm just wondering if what you're saying is caught under our interest, because it can't be don't split plan time, but everyone knows that adequate.
Why can't they have a
Plan-
protected plan time? Why?
I'm saying, I think you should capture this under interest, right? But you can't say, don't split plan time, that's a position.
Right.
But what you're saying is
Right.
adequate.
I mean, it almost, does it
preparation
go?
time.
Adequate, yeah, adequate plan time?
Yeah, adequate
preparation
or
time?
What it looks
even
like, maybe.
efficient,
Well, that'd be.
Effective?
effective, yeah, I'm not sure.
And I think the behind that is student outcomes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm going
Teacher's
back
not
to,
prepared.
especially if you're
it's
in
also teacher
art, I mean, I know this was
satisfaction, morale.
very music teacher specific. And I'm looking at our art teacher back there left. But
I know she was shaking her head a lot of this.
yeah,
Look, we're
she's
calling
being
her
mad
out
when she comes back and she
live.
knows I mentioned it. No. I mean, I'm just thinking about the materials in art. If you're an art teacher and your plan time's not in your building, getting materials ready for that building, getting displays set up for, I mean, my building has open house coming up. When do you get open house displays up? Things like that. I just can't even fathom how you do it.
Important perspective. So I'm just going to add effective plan time. It doesn't say how we can do it, but that it's an interest, right? And again, you may meet every one of these interests in your solution, or you may only meet some. 2 things I'm going to ask, because I, as a person who has no skin in the game, because I could never do what any of you do, I'm going to ask it. Number 1, is this a broad enough problematic issue that we want to look at whole changes, or when you look to solutions, maybe I'm asking this too early, when you look to solutions, are you going to be trying to solve something that may be having only a small number of people having trouble? And when I say that, I don't mean that you shouldn't try to solve for those people, right? Because they're just as important as anybody that's happy with their schedule, right? You need them. They're valued too. But when you think about problem solving, just question whether or not you're over-solving, right? And we don't know until you get to that. The other question I'm going to ask, Jill, is did the music teacher or teachers, when this was brought to you, were they able to say something like, could they see a way that, hey, if only I did this and this, I could have my whole plan? Did they see a route to it? Because in some ways, if they couldn't see a route to not splitting it, and whoever did their schedule couldn't see a way to not split the plan time, because wouldn't that require completely changing the schedule for an entire school? To make sure that teacher had plan time together, did the teacher say they could make it happen without changing the whole school schedule? Or do you know, if you don't know that?
I don't think it was going to be possible to get their plan in a 50-minute period and still keep them doing 17 sections at their building and 6 sections at another building, which is what the total was.
So other solutions would have been other things like an additional traveler, or maybe they trade out when they can cover for each other to get their plan time. The solutions would have to be in other creative ways, not.
Right.
Okay. Okay. And there are always creative ways because you might end up impacting interest in a negative way if you say, okay, we're going to need to change the whole school schedule. Is that going to impact student outcomes in other ways that aren't good, right? So
clarification on
Yeah.
that, Jill. That person was teaching 23 sections?
Yes,
So
they
then
were.
it
6 of
is-
their sections were with a long-term sub, but they were like
They were
modeling it
still-
while the long-term sub was watching. So yeah, they were teaching 23 sections.
So then that answers our question from earlier, if it's possible to teach at travel and
It's-
teach up to 23, 24
It's
sections.
possible,
The
but then
answer
you
is
have the
yes.
split plan.
I think is everyone ready to move on to solutions? Okay, brainstorm, guys. Just remember, on brainstorming, don't limit what you're going to throw out there. If it's a bad idea, it may lead to a good one, so just throw them out there, guys. We'll go back and we'll assess each idea one at a time after we get several thrown out there.
I think
Hey,
if they're
oh.
a traveling teacher, they should have to teach less sections because they're traveling. It's a solution.
Is it basically identify and limit the number of sections for travelers?
Yes.
Is it
Thank you.
appropriate to say travelers? I don't want to, traveling teachers.
Traveling
Yeah. Okay.
teachers.
I'm going to just put TT here instead of typing it out every time. Number of sections for traveling teachers, okay. What else? You were going to say something, Nolan?
Amber said what I wanted to say.
But you have to say how.
Oh, sorry.
What are some ways that you could look at to?
Protecting plan time at least, or like making sure that they have it, I don't know, they need to have it at least one build, or,
So maybe
So
like,
I'm thinking-
maybe they have a plan one day at one school and plan at a different school a different day. So not having their plan split, but instead they have their full-time at one school one day, their full-time plan time at another school.
And then how would that work
It's
for
about the
coverage?
location, not the length, is.
both.
I think the
If
length
PNA
too, I would
says 20
say,
minutes can be counted toward, if it's continuous 20 minutes, is it the issue that it's,
I think the issue is that, like, if I sit down to do something for, if I have a 50-minute plan, and this is just me, and I start something, if I only can work on it for 20 minutes, then I have to get up and go do something else, and then I have to come back to it. I'm going to lose a lot of my thought process on what it is that I'm working on, and that's going to make me less productive as a person.
so why does our PNA say, there's probably a reason that was negotiated.
Most likely.
Why does it say that? I'm guessing it goes,
It's probably long before Jill was around.
so then on a possible.
So what is the effective amount of time?
Oh, I don't know if there's an effective amount.
I don't know if there's an
I'm just
actual.
saying-
I
I'm
mean,
just saying, not to have it.
But
it-
then
it
as a
just sucks to have it split.
solution then is change language of the PNA that, where it says it can be split, so eliminating, I don't know how I'm phrasing this,
No,
or
you can
if I
say
can phrase this
or
correctly.
Updating?
Updating the PNA to change it to where the plan time has to be continuous.
Are
not
there
just-
other teachers that like theirs split?
Probably.
Most likely.
But, you know, this is a challenging one because, do you remember we get to a point where you have 15 ways to solve something? The way we usually get down to which ones are going to get traction is by process of elimination.
Right.
And usually it's feasible, affordable, manageable, legal. When you get to feasible, if I'm going to throw some things out there that we don't think through, we're going to mark them out as not feasible. And one would be if we say, you know, something like, you know, anything like, you know, every traveling teacher shall spend every other planned time at this school. Then when you start looking at what the school schedules are, is it feasible to then ask the schools to change their schedule to make that happen?
Right.
That's going to get to feasibility. But I almost want to let you guys throw those out there, but then those ideas that are good directions to take, just figuring out how, will get marked off as not feasible.
Right.
And then you won't try to accomplish it, right? That's where I'm saying there's got to be some sort of, let's throw out the different ways you change P&A to plan time can't be split.
Eliminate traveling teachers.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? Let's just throw them all out there. Just be cautious that when we go back, you may have some good ideas that could be accomplished some places, not others, but we're going to mark them out as not feasible. Let's just cross that bridge.
This goes similar to limit number of sections for traveling teachers. Similar language to how we have the 5 of 6 secondary language right now.
So under the limit, it's, you know, contractually. is what you're saying.
Yes, but if you were to teach more
You're compensated.
than X amount of sections, you're compensated.
Okay. Well, people know what I say. It's like or comp or compensation.
Yeah.
Okay. Other ideas?
I want to go back to the change P&A plan time. So we do split it, right? Because it's 230 per week. So you don't have like
yeah, I pulled it up.
a solid 230. So it would just be to alter the minimum number of minutes.
Yes,
That
because
you
right
can
now I
count
think it's
towards
20, and in order
continuous minutes
for
to be
it to count to those 230 minutes, it has to be
A minimum of
20
20.
during the student contact day.
Yeah.
So alter the number of minutes?
Alter the minimum number
The
Of
minimum
continuous
number.
minutes.
continuous minutes.
Yeah.
Right now, it says they must have at least a minimum of 25?
20.
20,
20.
yes.
And right now, are travelers getting 20?
Sounds like it. If
Yeah,
they're
I mean,
split-
it
Even if they're
sounds-
split, it sounds like they're
Okay,
getting the
got it.
20.
So it's
That would be
alter
a
the
whole other
minimums. I got you.
situation.
Yeah.
So you've already so we could mark out the split one because it'd be alter the minimum number of minutes. Okay, eliminate traveling
Is there-
teachers. What else?
Is there anyone other than traveling teachers that get the 20 minutes sometimes?
Oh, where their plan times are split?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Not that I'm aware of.
Not that, in my building, I would say
I feel
no,
like they would
looking
be
at
the
the
only ones
master
that would have a
schedule,
need
that's a
for
no,
it,
but
particularly.
that's just my building.
Any other ideas, guys? Let's keep the momentum going on brainstorm and then come back and go through each one at a time. Any ideas, Christine?
Pairing the plan time, sorry, where are you going? Pairing the plan time and the travel time together to give teachers the flexibility to be able to decide on their own which building they want to have their plan time in.
Yeah.
Provides building choice?
Oh, because we're specific
It would
to
be
their
teacher
schedule
choice.
right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
We could limit the number of buildings they have to travel to.
Yeah. Could we limit the amount of travel time if it's only gonna take them, like, I don't want it to be like, it's only 2 miles, it should take you 5 minutes, but like,
Or even limit it to feeder patterns. So limit that
Is
you
that
can
the same
only-
thing she's talking
I
about?
think
Or
that's
two
where she
different
was
ideas?
going, yeah.
Well, I mean, if, I get it, that's gonna mess up the master.
Well, let's
like, if
finish here
there's-
and then
so-
Nolan, it may be something
but yeah,
related, but,
That's what I was,
so how would you word yours?
I don't know.
Determine travel time based on Google Maps.
There we go, yeah.
Travel
Love me
time,
some-
actual
Love me some
travel
Google
time.
Maps. Yeah, so instead of just getting that overall, like 30 minutes to get,
Limit travel
from.
to within feeder pattern only.
yeah.
And that's how it's related to feeder?
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
Eliminate course offerings.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just.
No,
Yeah.
you can put it up there.
I mean, we
Absolutely.
talk bad ideas
It's
too.
not anything I believe in.
No, you
Right.
guys will
But
probably
no,
end
we
up
could-
marking that off, right?
Yeah,
But
no, we could absolutely do that.
Are we talking all levels, or are we just more specifically talking elementary levels?
Right now, we're just talking.
right now, you guys
traveling
are just
teachers,
open.
like, in
When you drill
general.
down on each one, you'd figure out if you're
So,
talking.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just thinking,
My
Travel-
cursor dies on
traveling
this
teachers.
computer often, and it's
TTs.
done that right now. So you're going to have typos I can't correct.
that's okay.
All right, what others? Is there hire more travel teachers?
Oh, we could do that.
And I know there's the interest of reasonable sustainability, but you'd have to just explore it. Other? What happens when a traveling teacher is absent? Are there sub-traveling teachers? Really? Okay.
They got to follow their schedule, man.
No one has said this. If an individual traveler wants to fix problems, how do we empower them and someone else to provide an individual solution? I mean, it sounds like the ideal that you said Pam was saying is ideally if someone's not in a situation that's good for them, they should be able to.
It is, my understanding, limited understanding of this issue is that it can be very person-specific. So, specific to what you teach, what things you may need to bring with you, what buildings you're going to, personal preferences, practical issues at that building, your students that you work with.
Right.
So, it may be that, and the person making the schedule may or may not be aware of those very specific things, and so it may be that it's a good solution is, if there's a traveling teacher that has a specific problem or perceives that they might get into a place where their guarantees under the P&A are not going to be met, we certainly want that proactively brought to us before
Right.
we have a potential violation.
Right.
So I don't know how to phrase that other than,
Right.
that the association and the administration cooperatively work together to make sure that if any issues do arise, that, from dissatisfaction to a P&A violation.
Well, would that be limited just you said dissatisfaction, not just a violation?
Yeah, just I don't like doing this to I can't get my plan minutes in, to I need a resource to help me get my stuff from A to B or a tool or.
So I'm just going to put that admin and association work together with teachers for individualized solutions.
Yeah.
Oftentimes doesn't happen unless there's a lot of education, a very clear-cut process that people aren't fearful of doing and they know how to access the process. I think that would have to go into that.
And
Other ideas? Do you have anything? Look like you're thinking.
I was thinking too, because it sounds like it's pretty limited on, from what Jill was saying, there were, 2 people? So the admin and association working together with the teachers to come up with these individualized solutions, I think.
Are travel teachers individually probably best able to know what could work for them and describe it and work with administration on that with the association? Would a group of teachers, travel teachers, be better equipped to know if there are just blanket changes that need to be made, or there are things they'd rather have within their control as individual needs? Would a group of, the way you all do committee work here, would a group of traveling, somebody's shaking her head a lot back there.
We
Yes.
do a little bit.
Would a group of traveling teachers be able to, because I feel like we're all kind of shooting in the dark if none of us are traveling teachers, and what if we do some changes that are harmful?
They're all so individualized. I mean,
And it sounds
but are
like year
there
to year
some
too,
things
like
that-
I could be fine with my schedule one
Yeah.
year, and then you do something to it that now makes my day-to-day kind of miserable.
Right.
if you put 15 of them in a room together, traveling teachers.
There would be
I'm
no
not
one
su-
common thing that they could see that could work
I'm
for
not
all
sure
of
they
them.
would have one common schedule.
Right.
Oh, really? But would they have a common problem that they could find their way to?
I don't.
Just
think
an
I should
option, you guys.
Speculate on that.
Just an option. Because I feel like it's going to be hard to make any of these actionable if you don't have more input. With people outside the room, or you're going to get some blowback in some way, I would think. Other ideas? I'm going to kind of have you just scroll for a minute. Let me put some bullet points here, but limit the number of sections or provide compensation. That would fix some of the problems that were listed, not all of them. Change P&A so that plan time can't be split. I think we ended up saying that wouldn't even be what you do. That probably comes off because it would be alter the minimum
Yeah, it would be
number
altering
of
the minimum
minutes.
number of minutes, yep.
We'll talk about that. Is it
I feel like I just
Doable?
need more information about where the 20 minutes came from and how,
Because that's just what's in the contract right now. It's on page 43 if anybody.
Right.
I mean, I assume it was to provide schedule flexibility.
Flexibility, that's,
Right. The
that is
question
the
is-
thing.
Right.
It's going to be very tough to make schedules work in individual situations if there's a requirement of a continuous amount of time.
And I know before we had the ABCD, we might have had like specials where we just had like a 30-minute special instead of the hour. Like PE and music used to alternate. I don't know, I know some buildings, kindergarten, when we went to ABCD, kindergarten still alternated PE and music both days instead of doing 50 minutes of each. I don't know if that's still the case and why someone might have a 25-minute plan period this day or not. So I'm wondering if that's where the minimum of 20 minutes came from
So you're on a 4-day rotation in elementary for specials.
now, but
Yes.
before we went to ABCD, we used to have computer labs that you signed up for a time, which kind of considered like the fifth special.
Okay.
That was still
And so
run
you
by the
didn't
classroom
have-
teacher.
Oh,
Like you might have PE and music together one day, but later in the week, PE and music might be on separate days where you'd have
Yep.
an extra 30 minutes somewhere else.
You would have 3 days of 60-minute specials, 1 day of a 50-minute specials, and then you'd have a no special day
okay.
when I come.
At this point, can I leave alter the minimum number of minutes up as an option, knowing you have to take a much deeper dive on that? Eliminate traveling teachers, can it stay up here? Feasible, does it fix the problem
I don't
without
think
harming
it's-
other interests?
I don't
No,
think it's
I don't think
feasible.
it-
It's definitely
yeah.
not
No,
feasible.
it's a
I'm
horrible
gonna take it off.
option.
Take it off.
Who said that?
Okay, but no, that's okay. I mean,
You gotta
that's
put all
good
of them
practice.
there, man.
Pair the
Okay.
plan and travel time together so that you can be at your sort of choice of the building you want to be at if it's tagged to your travel. That would be like an option that I think when people are working on their individual solutions with management, that may be a solution by way of example, but would you want to always pair it together?
How do we let them know? Like, do you get a piece of paper that says, this is your travel time, this is your plan time?
I can only speak to the traveling music teachers that I handle, and that is exactly what they get.
Do we care, like, does a building principal care?
If a block of time says lunch and they take it for their plan because their plan and lunch are paired up next to each other, no.
Does it raise any concerns about, my guess as to why we do this is to make sure that we are meeting plan time requirements.
Correct. And lunch requirements.
Right.
Speaking to the secondary level, there are certain times when, like, I think we typically try to do this, but there are times where I need to have a band class second hour, and I can get them a plan time first hour, but I can't get them a plan time second hour to match up with the travel time. So I think maybe a lot of times that would be possible, but I can see circumstances where it might not be possible to be able to always do that.
Can I leave it up by way of example on solutions that could be used?
Yep.
In some format? Limit number of buildings that
That they go
a
to.
traveler can go to. Would that be just a pick a number kind of thing? And how would it fit with needs and?
I mean, I think it goes down to strings,
I was gonna
band and
say,
strings, there's,
It's not, I don't think it meets the interest of being fiscally responsible. And
Because it would create,
because it could create a situation where a teacher says, well, can only be at 4 buildings, well, where do
What do
they
you do
go?
with the rest of their time?
Where do they go with the rest of their schedule? So,
Yeah.
Then would we have to push more teachers to part-time
part-time,
jobs?
correct,
that's what I was
less
going
than
to say, you have
1.0.
part-time positions.
Correct. That's not good for recruitment, retention, or anything else, so.
Do you guys want to take this off as an option?
Is there, just one more wondering, it seems like there's some specialist positions like strings that are like these real small one-off things.
Right.
Is there a way to say, if you're just a regular music art, how many of them are going to a long list of buildings? They can?
I don't know
Okay,
that.
just want to make sure, thought about it.
I believe we have identified the maximum number of buildings, and that is 7. So,
That's a lot.
That's a lot of buildings
yeah.
with 30 minutes of travel between.
I
Sorry, I'm
believe
trying
most
to
But they're
math.
not going every day, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're not going
I was
every
like, I'm
day.
sorry, I'm trying to math, and that's not mathing.
7 over the course of the week.
Got it.
We would have to double check with Pam, but I believe most of them have 2 buildings.
So we try, so an effort is made to try to limit it if possible. Again, I'm trying to remember, I know those are things that Pam's, mentioned last year is.
If desirable too,
Yeah.
right, by the teacher, I would think, if possible.
Right.
But then if desirable, if there are some teachers that just like to be on the go and
Yeah.
teach this. So can I leave limit number of buildings up here for now? We know it may have unintended consequences if you don't really think it through. May not be a blanket solution, but it could be an if possible kind of thing. Or do people want me to take it off? What do you want to do with that one? You tell me.
I mean,
Let's leave it on for
I was
now.
gonna say, we can leave it there. Worst case, we erase
Yeah.
it or get rid of it.
Okay, we'll make a pass through this again at some point. Create actual travel time. That was a little cringy for me as an ex-union rep.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's too many factors
I mean,
that come into play.
Trains.
But what
You
about
could
this
have an
under travel
equation.
only?
You could have an equation that's like, every mile or of course. So how does that help us?
It doesn't.
Well, it gives
Like,
frees up
where
more
does
time.
where does
How
it give you
help?
time is my question.
Right.
Like, what is that?
So are you, with that solution, are we saying like, my school's 5 minutes away from Benninghoven? That I don't need 30 minutes to get
Correct.
to Benninghoven?
Correct.
So we might be able to be,
So you might be able to
Give the
say,
plan.
instead of 30 minutes of 30 minutes of travel time, and then your 25 minutes of plan, you get 10 minutes of travel time, and you get 40 minutes of plan,
mean, it
so you
may
get a
be
bigger
that
chunk of
even
time.
Right, but in
Like
the
some
whole
sort of-
schedule, aren't they working less hours? Because if you've got 30-minute travel time between buildings right now, and you take it out, you can only use so much of that for plan without just having,
So
could.
right now, in the situation that Nolan is describing, where you get 30 minutes of travel time, and your travel time is only 5 to 10 minutes.
right.
You have extra time.
You're, yeah.
It's not bad.
there might be more of an ability to give you a block plan time.
Well, there's more of the ability for that teacher right now to have more time to plan.
But not
But
for everyone.
ultimately, they're still getting that time right now.
But not everybody.
So.
Well, I guess everybody has 30 minutes, no matter what you're teaching, if you're
I
traveling.
mean,
you have
I
30
live on the
minutes.
far
Or is it just
corner of
for
the
music?
district, and when I visit the furthest away school from my building, it does not take me 30 minutes in morning traffic. So that is something to be considered about. I mean, there is time, I mean, you can go stop at the
My
gas
question is,
station.
but
and
you were
get
able to
coffee
describe
in that
30-minute
time.
travel
So
time.
thinking about that a little
Was
bit.
everybody else able to describe 30-minute travel time, or is it just for the folks you, Amber, did you used to have 30 minutes, and do your travelers have 30 minutes?
They have 50 minutes.
50 of travel time?
And I guess
Whole block of time.
So,
the only other thing with, sorry.
So
In other
they-
words, is 30-minute the standard that everybody has if you're a traveler, or is it vary at
Yes.
We mark it, yes, as 30 minutes of travel, 20 minutes of plan, just because.
So they have 30 of travel.
And it's not 30 minutes to get to where they're going.
Although, I will add, to not be just, it's not just car to car.
Yes,
You
that's
have
where
to-
I was going.
You have to
Walk in
you have
the
to pack
building.
up your
There's other
things, you
things
have
to
to
do.
put on
Yeah.
your coat, you have to put on your
Right.
hat, you
Correct.
have to.
You don't just
make it
magically
to your
appear.
car, you have to
That's
leave
right.
the parking lot, so, I mean.
so I have a question / a suggestion since we're coming up on our time. This pretty much, the issue that we're talking about, since it is only limited for the most part to specials teachers, do we want to hear from the special coordinators on how this is impacting teachers? And could they potentially come to our next meeting, or at least email us with some info if we reach out to them? That way we have.
Are there others you'd want to hear from too?
Yeah, that way we just have a better understanding of it, because none of us are specials teachers that travel.
And I think we do, I mean, I think there's been, again, I don't want to, I know we're trying to limit the number of people on committees and the number of voices coming in. But I do think none of us are traveling teachers right now. We need to hear from traveling
That
teachers.
too. That'd
Well,
be-
that's what I was
talked
gonna
about
say.
that
Is
a
there
little bit
anybody else?
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you ask the specials coordinators and traveling teachers to view this online?
I'm sure we can.
And then what would be the
Sure,
way
they've
to
got a
get
good
input?
2 hours of their
Have-
life.
I think Alyssa Passmore back
What's a
there might be
structured way
working
to
on
get
it.
input is what I'm thinking. Amber, anyone thoughts on that? A structured way to get input from those folks if you have them view this?
I mean, we can invite outsiders to give
Feedback.
to give
Testimony.
presentations. That's what we did last year, and Pam described her process for creating that schedule. So I can ask her to review this and to get with the appropriate folks and come back and share some information with us, as well as her thoughts on these solutions.
Cool.
And then how do you get traveling teacher input? Are you all?
I can.
Somebody's pointing at Jill.
I'm sure Jill has contacts.
Yeah, as I say, I'm sure we can get a hold of some of them, or
And then,
someone would at least type up a statement that we could then
Does
read or
anyone,
something.
is that anyone opposed to Jill doing a quick report back to this group next time too, if you will be here, Jill? Okay, so then specials coordinators weigh in with the presentation, traveling teacher input from Jill at our next meeting. But can we real quick in the 5 minutes we have, and I know we want to see what's on our next agenda, hopefully we can get through this next time. But is there anything else that comes off?
Yes.
And I'm looking at.
Eliminate course offerings.
Yeah.
I don't know who said that. I'll go on the record. That is not, I'm not advocating for that in any ways. I was throwing up
all the
stuff.
solutions, it's okay.
That was.
Unlimited
I'm leaving
PTO.
that feeder
Not
travel
advocating.
only. There may
Yeah.
be some solution in there in some way.
get
Hire
to
more
put them
travel
all
teachers.
there.
I'm leaving that as a possible solution. Admin and association work together for individualized solutions. We leave that. But I think everything else is still on the table here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you may think of others after we hear back.
true.
Okay, so I can close this down right now. And Amber, was there any other last wrap-up we have? And/or is it just looking at what's our next agenda items?
I think we could continue with this next time, and if we wanted to, the things we still have to talk about are NEA-Shawnee Mission 4, how can we create an appropriate calendar that retains and recruits, and we also have, I don't think we talked about, there was one up here that you just changed.
The one with the 3 that we
320.
talked about today. We didn't bring up
that's
equitable
right.
workload for special education
Yes,
teachers.
yes, thank you.
Oh, I
was
got
like
you.
trying to-
I got
Oh,
you
well,
on
back
that
to
one. Don't worry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, workload for special education teachers,
Yes.
but don't we also have workload for?
Yeah.
So for the
Sped.
traveling teachers, for the most part, I think our focus was on the specials, but I know we
Right.
kind of broadened it to all traveling teachers, so.
Right. Do we need to still continue that, go back to an issue statement on a manageable workload for specials teachers, separate from this?
Talking about that.
I was saying, in my mind, they're kind of lumped together already, but I could be
And
thinking
the
about
person
it.
who's going to,
Wrong.
we're going to have a specials coordinator present?
I don't know who is the best person.
Right.
Ellis is the fine arts coordinator and Bill Thomas is the music coordinator.
And
I
Matt
will-
Anderson is physical education.
And Pam Lewis
And then-
does all the
Does
traveling
everything.
for
I would think
elementary.
that her input would be very helpful.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I just think that would be helpful since
Oh, I
none of
agree.
us
None of
travel,
us
and I'm
are
not
trying
gonna
to
lie,
solve a
I don't know the
problem
ins
that
and outs of
we-
it,
Don't personally experience.
so.
Right, right.
I will take care of getting the appropriate people
Oh.
here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
at the next meeting.
Oh, this is really terrifying when my computer locks up, like it does daily anymore. I don't want to lose that document. I feel like I want to close this and someone,
I really would like you to
If you did,
email
that
that to me
captured
so I
everything.
can.
right,
write the
it's
joint
it's
statement.
saving right now.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
saving.
Rachel, it's in the NEA-SM3
Thank you.
Google Doc.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to have to let it sit.
On the SPED issue, do you want me to ask a SPED administrator to be here?
I think so.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
I think that'd be
Yes.
fine.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know Sherry Delmillion has information to present about approved additional staffing and
Huzzah.
caseload numbers for next
Yes,
year.
can we
and-
please have that, please? Thank
Would
you.
you be ready for that next
Sorry, selfish. What is, what?
Oh, are we going to finish with
This?
what we were just talking?
I mean, I feel like it could go
What
fairly
is your next
quickly as long
meeting
as we
date?
have
Remind me,
appropriate
guys.
input.
Our next meeting date is a 2-hour meeting on Monday, April 8th. Is that a
Right,
Monday?
because it's 7
Yes.
days after the first, yep.
So,
So what's on the list then?
Right now, we have finishing up for the traveling teachers. But honestly, if the next thing is talking about like workload for special education teachers, NEA 5 is paperwork days,
Yeah.
so I feel like we can kind of
Yeah.
mesh those.
Okay.
So,
I think I can ask Sherry to be kind of on the bench
Okay.
and then let her know that if we don't do it April 8th, we need to do it at our last
Yeah.
April meeting.
absolutely,
Okay.
Is there any way we'll get further than those two?
maybe.
Are those our last?
Right, that's what I'm
Besides
wondering. What would be
compensation?
next?
Look at us
wow.
go, you guys.
There would be no other
Huzzah.
non-economic issue statements open?
What?
Those are the last two.
I feel like the district issues have been, non-economic issues have been addressed.
And there's no more draft language to come back that you've decided on previously? You've
Just
reviewed
the-
that one?
Just the,
Yeah, but that, I
that's
think
it.
she wanted to wait for compensation.
So you'll have that?
yeah.
And that's just one that I think the benefits committee needs to go and work on. Because
agreed.
they may have information about what that looks like, again, in terms of benefit to participants if there's that large of a plan. Now, they could be very tiny little accounts, so I don't know, maybe nothing, but it's worth knowing, I think, to have that information.
Agreed. Look at us getting done almost 2 minutes early.
Yeah, that's amazing. That doesn't happen often.
Who are
I'm just worried about losing this document, so I'm going to take a picture of your solutions, guys. Hopefully I won't lose it, but I want those solutions, right? Is there anything else to wrap up with?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I don't think so.
Feel like we got through some stuff.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Eat outside tonight.
that's right. It's gorgeous.